tonight's evening webinar, we're going to be talking about space and the arts. My name is Robert Ayon from the Guayaquil Space Society, and we're here together with colleagues at Centro Ecuatoriano Norteamericano, and we have a wonderful event planned for you, where we're definitely going to be talking about lots of exciting things about creativity, about art, how to be inspired, and I want to introduce our moderator for today, Karina Galvez. And Karina is a member of the Guayaquil Space Society, and she's a radio and TV personality, and also a poet at heart. And she has made an amazing poem that I'm going to share with you right now. So let me go ahead and just switch the screen so we can have these for you. And we'll start with this, and we'll have Karina join us shortly.
Beamed, we saw it. We all saw it. The lights beamed like lasers coming out of a fantasy world. But it was no fantasy. Our Earth was now just light. It was brighter and hotter than the stars round our flight. Below, icebergs waited no more, for the heat of the lights had melted it all. When did we lose control? Could we not see our fall? That same impending fall that did destroy us all? Yet, our feelings were mixed, for our eyes were still fixed on that new shining star that said hi from afar. Did we leave Earth behind? Were we out of our minds? Was it too late to see it needed you and me? With its beautiful ugliness, with its own ugly beauty, Mother Earth and its loneliness sought us out through our pity. May our new path be aligned with the new worlds we find. May we learn and remember how our Earth we dismembered. I saw it. We saw it. We all saw it.
Thank you for being here. I'm Karina Galvez, one of the founding members of the Guayaquil Space Society, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this webinar tonight. Thank you, Robert Ayon. Robert is the president of the Guayaquil Space Society. Guayaquil Space Society is the only space society in Latin America. It's the first in Latin America, and we are part of the National Space Society. What we see there is a painting by Gabriela del Oso. She is of Ecuadorian descent, and she's portraying, actually it's an homage to Remedios Varo, a Spanish-Mexican artist, a surrealist artist. And if you see there, she is like taking the moon out of this dome where she's either keeping it or bringing it out. The art can, the space can be portrayed in art in different ways, in this case in paintings. We probably also have heard a lot about a symphony called The Planet, written by Gustav Holst in 1916. It was premiered on September 29, 1918. And in it, Gustav Holst portrays the 7 different planets, and it gives each planet the strength or the force from an astrological sign that is usually linked with that particular planet. Now, Gustav Holst was a composer, he was a writer, he was a musician, and he was an educator, he was a teacher. And with that said, I'd like to welcome Monica Maruri. She is here with us tonight, and she's one of our key speakers. And Monica is an expert both in education and also in television. And she has a master's degree with new technologies applied to education. That's from the Instituto Universitario de Posgrado in Spain. And she's also has a degree in communication and relations between people in a global system that's called entrevista sistémica or intervención sistémica, or more than 5 years, even to the present. She's the chair of the Instituto Iberoamericano de Patrimonio Natural y Cultural del Convenio Andrés Bello. For 3 years, she has worked together with the Secretary of Education, creating and chairing a project, a tele-education project called Educa. And for 6 years, she was the Dean of the Faculty of the Science of Communication with Universidad Espíritu Santo. And for 4 years, she was an advisor to UNICEF. Has worked in and given speeches in many, many countries, and has been part of either choosing the people who would be participating in international contests that have to do with education or with speech. She's a member of the Centro Internacional de Estudios Superiores de Comunicación para América Latina, which is the International Center for Studies or Communication Studies for the whole Latin America. And she has also worked together putting a project for CISE, which stands for Integrated System for Social Indicators of Ecuador. I could go on and on and on with her expertise, talking about her expertise and talking about what she knows, but it's best that we hear from Monica. Monica Maruri, thank you for us. Thank you for being here with us. Monica, please unmute yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Right now I'm going to share my presentation. I hope, wait. Okay, I got it. There you go. I started working on television for children, I think in the early 80s. I always thought when they asked me, why do you use television? And it wasn't private television, not in public media. Why do you make television for children? And I always said, I wanted to awaken passion in children, passion to learn, passion for arts, for sciences. And it has been a beautiful and wonderful experience. But right now, children are watching a lot of screens. Whole Latin America thought that children were connected. They were on internet. They had computers all over. But COVID pandemic taught us that children didn't have a computer, didn't necessarily have internet, but what they did have in every single home, well, maybe not every single home, but a lot of them, they had a television. More than 90% of Ecuadorian children have a television at home. So it was a window to enter those families' homes and to teach them beautiful things and to get connected with them and to keep learning alive, because most of schools were closed. This is research done by the authorities of television in Colombia lately in April, and they found out that of that country, 93% of children had fun watching television. Okay, so that's something, they have fun. But 64% of them didn't identify with the content they watched on television, and 67% didn't trust what they watch on TV. And you know that trust is very important in order to learn and in order to teach. If your students don't trust you, then you don't have much to teach. We did research in April 2020 with Dr. Maya Gotz for the EASY research in Germany, and we interviewed in 40 countries children, asking them about COVID and fake news. And of course, the most important finding we had in that research we did with Dr. Maya Gotz was that the more fake news, the greater they feared. So, fear is inspired by ignorance and lack of knowledge. Okay, so let's see. I wondered why educational television was used just to teach and to awaken that passion to learn. I think that television and education are a successful combination. They go together very well. And remember that the word television means images from far away. So I'm not talking about a TV station. I'm not necessarily talking about the old television, that box we had at home, either in the living room, in wherever at home. I'm speaking about images that travel to tell you passionate stories and beautiful stories. And television is very important to show a balanced view of their society. And it's very important for inclusion, equity, and solidarity. You can use television not only to show the social classes that have more money in a society, but to show all the faces of children and teenagers. And television can be very important for this matter. Television can be used to teach science. I don't have to tell you that, because since Cosmos, 50 years ago, I think, we already learned so many things about the cosmos using television. But lately in Latin America, we have been using television to teach science. Here are two programs on the left and on the right. One is from Argentina. The other one is from the television that we had a few years ago in Ecuador. I remember that the Ministry of Science and Technology called me and he said, children are not, and teenagers, when they finish high school, they are not choosing science careers. And there is a problem. We as a country in Ecuador need kids to choose science careers. So we have to teach them since they're kids that they love math, that they love science. And you know what's the best way to do it? Telling a good story. I'm going to show you a small video that we made in Ecuador, and that it taught math to little children in a very fun way. Please. I hope my internet helps me. Oh my God.
Él es Telmo Suma Resta y es profesor de matemáticas en la Escuela del Conocimiento. Y este soy yo, sí, yo soy Pitágoras. Y soy un cuy, o sea, la mascota de la clase. Consentido.
I'm not sure my internet is going to help me.
Pongamos atención y pensemos con conciencia. Busquemos la relación de correspondencia. Tratemos de buscar la correspondencia.
I'm going to go back to the presentation so I can tell you about those two programs. Tengo Pitágoras. This is a teacher. He taught math with a lot of music, dancing, rhythm, everything. Remember that music has a lot of math in it, and that music has a lot of time, it has a lot of math in order to learn music. But it was a program about, Telmo was a teacher, and Pythagoras was that mouse, and they had a lot of fun. And this occurred in a class where children learned through music a lot of math. On the left, we have a TV program from Argentina. And it is a beautiful program called Entornos Invisibles. And the episode that I was going to show you is about roller coasters. It's about the centripetal force, and it's about how when you're in a roller coaster, you're scared, and how your organism gets scared and it gets thrilled, and what happens in your body when you're in a roller coaster. So it was a program that really taught us about science, technology in a fun way. Educational TV is art that must inspire and that must make you believe that you love sciences, that you love arts, and that you're interested in them. We also use technology just to enforce or to strengthen the content, but it's not the center of what we do in television. You know what? I started television, educational television in the 80s, and I have been a teacher for many years. And when my students put a lot of color and music, and I told them, but what do you want to tell me? I want it to be colorful and with a lot of music. But what's your message? What do you want to teach me? And I always ask them, you must have a very clear message before telling the story, and you must have a story to tell. Proyecto G, also an Argentinian program, and this one about the pie is about both programs. The main character is a scientist. It's not a TV personality. It's a scientist, and real scientists are fun. And real scientists know how to speak to children. Real scientists don't speak difficult, not at all. The same as good teachers. If children are interested, then education happens. And if you get children to be interested, then education happens. You have to foster flexible thinking and creativity. Those are the ingredients that are needed for innovation. And science and technology are beautiful contents for television. I'm sorry I can't show you those videos. I really wanted to, but as you see, my internet is not that good today. Here it is. But educational television must be innovative. It must have interesting formats. And sometimes they told me, but educational television must have a teacher on the screen. No. Educational television must look like a class. No, never, please. I come out from school at 2:00 p.m. I already had teachers all the morning. You really want me to turn on television to keep having classes? No, I want to turn on the television to be inspired, and good educational television is the complement to good school education. What you see here in the left is Samba. That's an Argentinian, beautiful and very famous educational program. It's about it's about history, the history of Argentina. And Samba is a little boy that he travels in time and he learns everything about Argentinian history. Did you know that Samba taught children from Argentina so many things that when they had their birthday, they wanted to have samba in their birthday, and they wanted to have Belgrano, and they wanted to have history heroes in their birthday, the Argentinian kids, because when good television is on TV, then children are inspired. Enseña is a program about sign language, okay, and teaching sign language. It was beautiful, colorful, with music and stories. And it won for Ecuador a Japan prize. I went to Japan to receive that prize from the hands of the Minister of Education of Japan. And it was a beautiful experience of an Ecuadorian TV program that could teach in a fun way and can be inclusive with those who need to use sign language. And here you can see La Nota de Lata, the tin note. It's a musical program, and it was beautiful because we thought that Ecuadorian children needed to see on TV to see themselves. And I'll explain what it means to see myself. Well, I don't want a hero on TV, a kid that is perfect, that is the best student, that he plays the violin like he was the best violinist of the world. I cannot be the best one of the world. I am not sure I'm good. I'm not sure I have the strength to be the best. I only want to learn. Okay, so we put in television children that were learning, that were passionate about what they do, but they were not perfect. They were not prodigies. They were just good at it. They were just trying to learn. It was a beautiful program. And we put the real children from Ecuador playing their instrument and telling why they did, why they were so passionate about it. And they were from all over the country. There were indigenous kids, there were Afro-Ecuadorian kids, there were normal kids from normal schools, from normal places. It was a beautiful program, and it had a lot of rhythm, and it told you about the instruments, and it inspired you. Hey, if that kid can, then I can do. And that's what good educational television, teaching you arts and sciences is all about. And there's a key in educational television. You have to learn without noticing that you're doing it. That's the key, and that's a secret. And I think that's a secret about every single education, okay? So there was this research, hey, you have an instrument there. I see, Steve, you like television and you like music, the same as me. There was this research made by Easy that I liked a lot. There's this program called Caillou. Okay, and they were studying kids that watched Caillou and children that didn't watch, and they compared what they learned. So there was this little girl, and she said that when her mom gave her chocolate or banana, she said, I want the banana because it's more healthy. And her mom told her, how do you know that? I don't know, I just know. She had watched the day before Caillou, and Caillou had said that bananas were more healthy than other sugary food. She didn't notice she had learned it from Caillou. And that's the best educational television, where you learn things and you don't know you're learning them. They just become part of you, and they just become part of what you know. So, what must be present in educational television? Research. You have to research before you do television. What are kids interested in? What do they like? What are they passionate about? How do they learn? How do they play with each other? What do they watch? What do they look at? What do they admire? A lot of things you have to research. You have to sit with kids. Don't only ask them questions. Don't only do interviews. Don't only do research with the survey. Sit around them. Listen to them. Find the right voices. Inquire, measure, and feedback. Always. When you do something educational on television, then measure it. See how they react to it. I did an educational program in the early 2000s, and we did a lot of research. And the name of the project, Aprendamos, una oportunidad para superarnos. Let's learn. This is an opportunity to go forward. It wasn't created by us. We went, spoke to women, to families, and they told us this. And that was the name of the program. We must not introduce something that is not part of the world, part of their knowledge, part of their life, okay? So, sit and listen, sit close to children. Sesame Workshop has done a lot of that, and we have learned a lot from them. But I'll tell you the most important thing I learned from educational television. Give them a voice. Don't show adults teaching them. Don't show other children. Show them. Look for the children with the faces, with the color of the skin, like your audience is going to be. Show their faces and their stories. Children must feel represented, and they have a lot to say. We always are giving the voice to the children. We're always writing scripts for them and telling them things. Children, shut up, listen to us. Adults know better. No, that's not true. Children know better, and we have to listen to them. Find the right voices. I remember this program where you see this Afro-Ecuadorian girl. She's a dancer. She likes folk music. She is a girl from Esmeraldas, that's a province in the north of Ecuador. And she told us her life story. And she danced, and she was so rich. Her life was beautiful. And at the right, this series was called I Am. So you said, I am. We gave a camera to these girls or boys, and they filmed their world with their eyes. And they told you how their world was. And they used their camera. So we filmed them with our camera, and they had a camera that they used to film their life. And at the right, these girls, they wanted to be astronauts. They're from the south of the country, and Carolina was the main character of this, and she told us her story, how she wanted so much to be an astronaut and how were her dreams. It was a beautiful documentary. I am sorry I did have the videos, but so this is how it works for today. Inquire, measure, and always feedback. Review previous inquiries, replicate hits, value qualitative as much as quantitative. You need quantitative research because you need very important results that can sustain whatever you decide, but you need qualitative results in order to find the richness, what they feel, how they react to the contents you put. Okay, so last year, when the COVID crisis came, there was no educational television or classes on TV. So they asked IPANC, our institute, to develop and produce Aprender la Tele. It's a game of words. In English, you wouldn't understand because aprender is to learn and to turn on is prendere. So it was a game. You turn on television and you learn at the same time. It was, we made 2 hours daily. It was a lot of work. And we started with preschool and ended at 15 years old of students. We tried to put music and fun. And especially, you know what we tried to do? At the beginning, the curriculum of Ecuador had here math, here language, here arts, here, and we decided we would not teach that way, but in projects. The same as live. In life, you don't find math here and language here and science here, but when you have to solve a problem, they're all in front of you. So that's the model that we used to teach. And I think we did good. We can still improve a lot. It was an agreement between UNICEF that funded the Ministry of Education of Ecuador and our institute. We did around 500 episodes that were broadcasted in every single TV station in Ecuador. And especially since I told you more than 90% of Ecuadorians do have a television, we hope we got, we didn't only have these projects, we also really concentrated in helping kids and their families with their emotions, how to work, how sad or scared they were facing the COVID. And we put a lot of emphasis in having good habits, eating healthy food, sleeping enough at night, having routines a day. They were inside, and for many months, Karina can say it was like that in Ecuador. For many months, there was a curfew in Ecuador. And for families that are very poor, in a very small house, having babies and kids at home without going to school was really a big and bad challenge for them. So we really concentrated on that. So, lessons from the pandemic. TV still achieves greater reach than the internet, at least in Latin America. And we did in the last week of March a meeting with all the producers of Latin America. It was really a great meeting where we learned a lot from each other. Television and education support each other and they go well together. Connect with and learn from other countries. Consider always social diversity. South American countries are so diverse. And I think the world is so diverse. We are so diverse. Train teachers to take advantage of television and use it in class. Reuse the content to reach those children who do not attend the reopening schools. The countries require public television because it's the only way they can really receive this kind of educational television. And without the funding, there's no educational television. So I'm done. I spoke too long. I'm sorry. Let's keep on.
Thank you so much, Monica. That is absolutely great. It's great to hear what we can do and how we can utilize every aspect of life and every day and every hour to teach and um, children around us, the teenagers around us. Monica, you said something that actually applies to our next speaker, and you mentioned that real scientists are fun. Real scientists are not boring. And with that, I'm going to welcome Steve Brody. Steve Brody is a senior aerospace professional, an MIT-trained rocket scientist with experience in aerospace industry. He's worked at NASA and for NASA, and of course, colleges in academia in general. He is currently involved as a faculty member for the International Space University, ISU, a senior technical advisor for Space VC, that is a venture capital firm focused on space technology and human longevity. He's a member of the General Assembly of ISU, the senior governance body of the university. As a ISU faculty member, he focuses on space and society topics like space and the arts, like inspiring the next generation, which is also a word that Monica used. We need to inspire. He does techniques for kindergarten to 12th grade classes based on his classroom outreach experiences at NASA. He also chairs webinars and seminars and conferences like Space, Spirituality, and Interfaith Dialogue, as well as lessons learned from NASA, human and robotic missions with which he has been involved. Steve has also helped because with the International Space Station program, he spent 4 years in the Netherlands as NASA's liaison to the European Space Agency, that's the ESA, during which time he also assisted the mission of the US Embassy in The Hague, serving on staff to the US Ambassador on protocol matters relevant to NASA and the space program. He was a participant in the landmark NASA-sponsored study of space settlement, which resulted in the Stanford Torus designed for 10,000 people to live and work in space. He has a bachelor's degree in physics from Drexel University and a master's degree in aeronautics and astronautics from MIT. And he's also worked at SOFIA, which stands for the Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy. So that said, here we'll welcome our rocket scientist, who's not boring at all, who is fun to learn from. And here is Steve Brody with us. Thank you so much, Steve.
Me gustó mucho. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you. Buenas tardes. And that's demasiado, too much about me. Did you wish me to continue, or did you? Okay, so first off, I wanted to thank Monica. It was a pleasure hearing you speak. I saw that you had the acronym STEAM, which connects what people often talk about without much thought, the science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM. But EA, the arts, is so important, because not everyone wants to be an engineer, not everyone wants to be a mathematician, but those who are interested in space and space, looking up at the heavens, it's something that all humanity has done throughout the century. And it's something that bonds us together as a species that has the intellect, has the ideas of where did we come from, what is out there, are there others like us out there? So I'm very pleased to be on the agenda to speak about space and the arts. Karina, did you wish to interject, or should I go into my presentation?
Yes, just go on with the presentation. Yes.
Okay, very good. So, why space in the arts? I guess for me, it's sort of a symbiotic relationship. It's a complementary, mutually beneficial relationship. Very often, there's the power of the arts to convey the great. I have made some notes here, so I'm looking. Convey space and the space experience through the talents of the creative artists, through by musicians and painters and sculptors and poets and lyricists, to be able to put the experience of space in ways that communicate well beyond the technical subjects. And on the other side, the power of space and the space experience to inspire people from the arts to take their talents to new levels. As I like to say, the sky is not the limit. We can go much beyond, and the stars, Ad Astra, to the stars, allows people of creative talents, some especially young children who have those talents and may not see a connection to space, but be able to bring those two together and realize that if you are inspired by the stars, or if you are inspired by our beautiful planet and the diversity that it has, that it too can trigger your own talents in music and poetry, as we heard from Karina at the beginning, and other ways of expressing your emotions and your feelings and your connections to space. For myself, I would say that as a child, I was a child of the Apollo generation, which means that I was a youngster growing up watching on television as the early astronauts rocketed off into space for the very first time, and those that went finally to the moon. And for me, some of the artwork, and talking about what inspired me, some of the artwork, and I will have these references for the moderators to disseminate, but there's a great artist and architect who lived from 1888 to 1986. His name was Chesley Bonestell, and I have his reference to his website. But he did some of the earliest illustrations of what it would look like to go into space. And I will just show you, if I may start my screen share. May I go now and do that? So, oops. I did that without clicking the right buttons. Can you still hear me? Yes, you can. Okay. Are you seeing my screen? And you are. Very good. Let's see. So this is, I will go to full screen here and minimize that. This is Chesley Bonestell's website. And these are some of his illustrations. He passed away in 1986. There's a documentary about his life, but he inspired so many people that astronauts that went to space, as well as Ray Bradbury and other science fiction authors. And his website shows some of these images. And then, so I was inspired reading the magazines that had some of his pictures in there to envision what the future may be. And then later on, I got to view the work of Alan Bean. Now, Alan Bean was one of the Apollo astronauts who went to the moon and walked on the moon. And he's the only, he was the first ever artist who went to the moon. He trained as well as a pilot and a technical person, but he had this creativity in the arts. And this is from his website. And again, I'll have the link for that available to our hosts. And he passed away a few years ago, but he was one of the have only been 12 people to actually walk on the moon. And his are the first ever paintings of another world by an artist who was actually there. And this is his artist. This is a painting he did of Neil Armstrong walking on the moon. And later on in my own career, when I was at NASA, I got to get exposed to the work of Pat Rawlings. Now, Patrick Rawlings, and this is his website, which I'll have the reference to, he worked on a lot. He is a very excellent artist that would take the scientific and technical data of the space environment. And I remember being involved in workshops that were envisioning the future, and we would have people like Patrick Rawlings with us to capture the words we would express, and he would make the paintings that would help us help portray what we were talking about. Later on, he and I worked together, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. Let's see. But there is one, let's see. So I will go directly to that. So when I was at NASA, I was able to work with artist Patrick Rawlings, and I was given a challenge of how do you communicate the experience of space and what its future may be to other people who are not interested in becoming professional astronauts, not inclined to become scientists, but wish to have a space experience. And he and I worked together on the following painting, which he did for us. And I will go to full view. Hopefully that will be portrayed. This is a painting that he did, an oil painting, and this is a lithograph created that I helped to create at NASA when I was there in the mid-90s. And as you can see here, what it is a portrayal of what might the Olympics look like on the moon someday, when humanity has settlements, not only science stations, but where humanity has actual cities or settlements on the moon, on Mars, perhaps even in freestanding structures floating in space. And this is an image of what a competition on the moon, an Olympic competition, might look like, with a clear dome above that's made of, and I often would talk to students in classroom, we don't yet know what material this could be made of. Some call it unobtainium because we're unable to obtain it right now. But perhaps some of our future engineers and scientists and technicians will solve the problem of how to have a clear plastic glass that can be the vacuum of the moon outside, but be the regular Earth environment of atmosphere, the Earth's atmosphere inside. And inside, with only 1/6 gravity, perhaps later in this century, the moon will become a place where people not only live, learn, and work, but also play and have sports competitions, maybe human-powered flight, pole vaulting to amazing heights, lifting great weights, etc. And working with Pat Rawlings, I said, let's show sports in space, because with that, we talk about some of the best attributes of humanity, working together, collaborating, cooperating, having international competitions. But also there would be the commercial sector of humanity's presence in space, where we will be having advertising, and these are an example of advertising promotions. Maybe there still will be something like Nike or its equivalent later on in this century, advertising their sports equipment, or the equivalent of the space beverage for outer space. So we would have advertising. So there would be the commercial aspect. There would be the economic driver to GNN, Global News Network. Here we have the dish beaming the games back to Earth, where some people would come to visit and be in the stands, but others would be watching the games on the Earth. So that's just a way of combining the talents of artistry and portraying what the future might look like and the future of a space environment. Right now, I'd like to offer what I believe is one of my favorite, let me go back to where that was. One of my favorite presentations, and that is by an artist who is a musician who is actually a Canadian astronaut. And let's see what he has to offer us. For this will be a 5-minute interlude that hopefully we will enjoy.
Control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Lock your Soyuz hatch and put your helmet on. 10. Ground control to Major Tom. 8, 7, 6. Commencing countdown, engines on. 3, 2. Detach from station and may God's love be with you. This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade, and the papers want to know whose shirts you wear. But it's time to guide the capsule if you dare. This is Major Tom to ground control. I've left forevermore.
So it's hard for me to follow that. That was Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield, who was on the International Space Station. And I will say, though, that in seeing that, one truly can appreciate how the combination of creativity and space is that symbiotic relationship, that bringing together of two worlds. So one other thing, I mentioned that I was involved with creating that image of what the Olympics on the moon might look like someday, the Lunar Games. I can offer that another work of art, I would say, is bringing together the inspiration that I had to envision what I'd call a connection of cosmic wonders, awesome images of the cosmos, and the ability to connect that in a multimedia fashion. So the following slide presentation, along with some music, I hope you will enjoy. It's something that you can meditate on, enjoy, and it'll take about 3 minutes, and then we'll talk some more. so I hate to break the serenity of that collection. I will just say that it was a very personal collection of images, ones that struck me when I first saw them and when I was stopped in my tracks, so to speak, breathless or saying, and these are all actual pictures taken by telescopes, either in space, the Hubble Space Telescope, or in observatories, perhaps in Chile or the United States or in Europe or elsewhere, up on top of mountainsides. And all the images came from the Astronomy Picture of the Day website, which has a beautiful selection of images every day, a new picture. And they just grabbed me. But these, one way that one goes beyond just the artistry into helping to deal with the challenges of having dialogue within. Let me, I think it's probably, I should stop the screen share so I can continue this discussion a little bit. Those set of images were used with the poetry of ancient sacred text of two different old faiths, the ancient faiths, the Hindu faith and the Jewish faith, for an evening of exploration. It was called the Hindu Judaism Evening of Exploration. And we showed these images with recitation of poetry from the Bhagavad Gita, which is a sacred text of the Hindu faith, and from the Old Testament, the Psalms and Genesis from the Bible. And those, the poetry went one alternating with the other, a representative of the Hindu faith speaking from their sacred poetry, and a representative of a Jewish congregation speaking of their separate. And we had an evening where these images were projected on giant tent-like screens in a sanctuary here in the Washington, D.C. area, with representatives of both communities and also from other faith communities. So the ability of bringing people of different cultures, different backgrounds, and different faiths together, recognizing that most, if not all, of the world's great faiths and traditions have imagined what is up there and how did it come to be and what might be humanity's place in all this. So I was inspired to work with some others to do that sort of evening. I will just say that the one other piece of creativity that I've been very privileged to bring about in bringing space and the arts together is to conduct workshops specifically on this topic, space and the arts, at the International Space University for a number of years, where we would bring participants together, participants like one of our hosts, Robert Ayom, and others of all different ages, all different backgrounds, from sociology to engineering and everything in between, and people of all different countries and nationalities. And in my workshop session, we would take the first 30 minutes or so to show the things that I've just shown you this evening, the Chris Hadfield video from YouTube and some of these others. And then 2 hours or more would be taken by the participants to go off and create their own artistry. And I have always been blown away in admiration and being overwhelmed by the output of what they've come back with. And at the final hour of the workshop, they would illustrate what they had done. And some came back with songs, others would come back with poetry, others would do artistry, either sketches or with oil paints. Even had one, in fact, I recall a young man from Peru who came from a very small village, and he envisioned someday, by staring at the sky, maybe he would be able to be a part of space exploration. And he didn't know anyone in his village who had his own interests. But then he came together at this university, and it was in my workshop, and he produced a rap song with his own, in the 2 hours, he produced an entire rap song and did sketches. And he talked about how it was to be a youngster, a young man, and a young child in a small village in South America, and to look up at the sky, hoping someday he would find his family of space people. And he found himself in our program and produced this little rap song in 2 hours. I was just overwhelmed by that. So with that, it's been my privilege to share these things with you, and I hope it may inspire people to realize, bring your creativity and your creative talents, and if you have an interest in space, find a way to marry them, to bring them together, and share, if you're willing, share them with the outside world, and bring us to a positive vision of the future of humanity as a spacefaring civilization here and beyond. So thank you, and thank you to Karina and to Robert and to Monica for sharing the activities this evening.
Thank you so much, Steve. And each picture was a work of art. Each picture was, it was just amazing. And well, we had astronaut Greg Johnson here with us in some of our webinars before, and he actually shared some of the pictures that he took when he was in orbit. Now, this particular week, we are actually celebrating the 60 years of the International Day of Human Spaceflight. It was on April the 12th, 1961, when Yuri Gagarin, as Soviets, was actually the first human to be out there, where most artists would like to be. And in 2011, in April 2011, the United Nations General Assembly declared the 12th of April as the International Day of Human Spaceflight. So it's actually 10 years from the declaration and 60 years from the actual trip. So it's some really interesting data there. And the Guayaquil Space Society was formed November 2019. So we're celebrating our first year and a half. Robert has some questions that the audience has been sharing with us, and so he's going to be asking.
Very good. Thank you.
Monica, this is a question for Monica.
Your microphone, Robert.
What do you think, Monica, about having a TV show about space in Ecuador? Do you think people will be excited about that? And I don't know, what are the characteristics, if that will be something educational or entertaining? How can we get people inspired through TV, like you were mentioning, about space?
The first thing I would like to say is that it's not two things, educational.
Monica, your microphone now.
No, my microphone is open. I don't know what's wrong. Yeah. Education and entertaining are not two different paths. They are the same, not either educational or entertaining. Every education must be interesting and entertaining, and television has to be entertaining, yes or yes. Okay? So you do listen to me, Steve? You can hear me? Okay.
We cannot hear you, Monica.
I don't know why. Steve can, so.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, that's great. So I hope audience can listen to me. Okay, so of course we can have a space program. You know that listening to Steve, I was thinking about how many times I looked at the stars, and since I'm in the highlands, the skies are so blue. In Ecuador, you have to come to Quito, Steve. We have a beautiful sky, and we have beautiful, and I always thought, I always tell my husband and my kids, someone painted this. I always see so much beauty and grandness in the sky, either at night or at day. And I would say, can you see the painting? It's oil paint. I always tell them, this is oil paint. And when I was looking at the pictures that Steve shared with us, the picture of the day, I thought, they can't be real. They color them. They always, I say that, they can't be real. Is the outer space so colorful? We always think it's black, it's dark black. It's not, it's so colorful because nature is so colorful and rich in every way in the universe is. So TV must show that, and TV must inspire with that same music and poetry, but speaking in the language of the new generations. You know that when I was listening to Steve, I also thought that there's this writer, Walter Isaacson. I guess you have read. He wrote the biography of Leonardo and of Steve Jobs. And he said, I remember in an interview, that the real genius has the sciences and the arts, both of them developed, and they meet in the most brightest minds of history of humanity. There's arts and sciences, and they meet. So I think that television must show that to kids. And I hope we can do it in Ecuador, but with funds. That's the bad part always. I'm sorry to say that.
Thank you, Monica. That's great to hear. Another question for Steve from the audience. Steve, what do you think about the next breakthroughs in art are going to be in space? Because we have some artistic people going in that inspiration mission now. Are they going to be doing new paintings, new poetry, new songs? What do you want to see next?
Well, there are two answers to that. There are things perhaps I wish I would like to see, and I can imagine right now. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
But I think that, what do I expect to see? I expect there will be things I cannot even imagine, because that's where creativity comes in. And I'll tell you one example of that. Was it back in 2019 when I was in Strasbourg, France, at the campus of the International Space University. The summer program had an opportunity to be a part of a space art experience. And what happened was the entire class of that summer, which was around 120 people, gathered together in this medieval church in Strasbourg. And Strasbourg is a beautiful city with some beautiful, in fact, there's a church where Beethoven had actually performed. It was Beethoven or Bach? I think it was Beethoven, had performed in this church. And we were gathered there for a experiment. When the International Space Station came overhead, there was an experiment. There was a kaleidoscope. Do you understand a kaleidoscope? There was a kaleidoscope that the head of the Space Payloads Lab at the International Space Station had collaborated with one of our students. He goes by Nahum. He's Mexican, and he is an artist that has I believe in Mexico City, and he combines space and the arts. And Nahum had worked with Chris Welch, the head of our Space Payloads Lab. They built a kaleidoscope inside a payload, which was launched to the space station. So here we were, 120 of us in the church, and we waited for a signal that the International Space Station was overhead. And what Nahum had us each do, or had not each of us, but he selected a number of us. They took a microphone from that he was carrying, and he would give it to whoever would volunteer, and they would place that microphone over their heart, because the microphone would capture the heartbeat, and the heartbeat would trigger, by sending the signal to the space station, would trigger the kaleidoscope to create its lights. And then we would see on a screen what was being created at that very same instant. It blew my mind. I had never, so here was something that they had created, and then they had taken it from an idea to produce it and put it on the space station. So what will this inspiration group do? I'm sure there will be perhaps some small instruments that some of them carry on board, maybe a harmonica or a ukulele or something. But perhaps, who knows, maybe we will have other poetry written to mimic some of the work Karina offered to us, based in the words of these astronauts that will travel, I believe, around the moon. Is that the mission? I believe that's the mission, or up to the space. This is to the space station or into space, but it doesn't really matter. Wherever they go, by placing humanity, individuals, into situations where they've never been before, and perhaps where no one has ever gone before, there will be new things that we cannot even imagine. So I guess that's my answer.
That's great. Steve, I'm sure when you listened to Monica's presentation, some questions came up. Is there something you would like to ask her?
So in talking about a TV show, what came immediately to mind is there are these many opportunities now for small experiments to be built by school children as well as universities. And perhaps the best model is to have somebody who is working in the space field. For example, Robert here, working there in Ecuador, working with the local university, and they working with some of high school students perhaps to put together a small experiment. So I'm hoping that maybe through either TV programming or educational programs that can be funded maybe by the government or by science grants that may come from outside sources, philanthropists, maybe there are a few rich Ecuadorians who might also see the wisdom of seeding the creativity of its future citizens, that we will see some experiments or perhaps art that would be created and then flown into space. And of course, once something goes into space, it has an extra cachet, an extra sense of value, as well as that other experience. So I don't know, Monica, if you have any reaction, if you see any opportunities for maybe creating something that will actually go into space.
You speak with wisdom, so I hope that happens. What you just said, I hope it becomes true. I have been in a lot of television festivals in different countries, either in Europe or in the United States or in many countries, and there's a lot of experiences with professionals on sciences, on space also. I can remember right now that program that I said about Carolina, who her dream was to go to space. In her school there was this club, and they made this, I'm sorry if I don't remember, but they sent it to space, and there was a message of this high school students, and we filmed the documentary as Carolina told us her story, and we hoped that students all over Ecuador would see the program and would see themselves in Carolina and her classmates and try to do similar projects. But I had a question for you, Steve. I'm sorry. I feel that faith and religions have been a motive for division and fight in many times, but also faith and religion can be an opportunity to get people together. You mentioned about this interfaith bringing people together, and I heard that you were interested in spirituality, which is very important in my life. And I use the word spirituality because even though I have a religion, mine is not the only one. And I think that my spirituality can meet perfectly with other faiths, and it can be a reason to be together. So tell me about your view about this.
Well, you've spoken words that are very close to my heart, in that one of the things I seek to provide whatever small contribution I can provide, and that is to find ways to bring people of different cultures and different faiths together and recognize our common humanity, because there's so much that we have in common. I mean, even at the scientific level, the biologists will tell us, what percentage, like 99%, we are equal across all species. But I find that we all need to look at what are our special talents that we can bring to help that. And I was just blessed to find the opportunity through dialogue with a rabbi of the Jewish faith, before he was a lawyer for his whole career, then became a rabbi. But when he was growing up in New York City, he would go to the Hayden Planetarium, where Neil deGrasse Tyson is the director, and look at the stars, and had a fascination. And when I told him that there were these images, the ones I showed you, these images that were awesome, and that's the right word, they struck awe. And of course, the word awe, that wonderment about the universe, it's very much present in most, if not all, faiths throughout, and all philosophies throughout time. And I told him there were these pictures that left me without breath. They were so beautiful, and to recognize, as you or Karina was saying, that how could they actually be real pictures? And yes, they are. And he said to me, collect them. And it was his recommendation. He says, collect them. I will find phrases from the Psalms of King David and from the story of Genesis and all these poetic sacred texts from that faith, from the Jewish faith. And then later on, I sensed that this was a framework to bring different faiths together. And I hope to do more of this with other faiths, of course, a Muslim faith, of the Abrahamic faith, but also we did this one with the Hindu faith. I've just learned a bit about Buddhism and others that, and it is a way, and I've conducted this interaction with sacred text from different faith traditions, combined with these beautiful images, and with somebody on a piano or with the music like I presented, to get us all to enjoy in the same room, even though we may not have real thought that there were things we had in common or things that would bring us together. But when we could enjoy good music together and beautiful images of the cosmos together, and hear phrases from different faith traditions, which are all valid pathways to a good life and to helping each other with empathy and with compassion. And then that's, if anything, if space, as the astronauts say when they go into orbit, they look down, there are no borders. One does not see borders, and they get this overview effect, this sense of the preciousness of planet Earth and its existence within the cosmos. So there are a lot more things to bring us together, and this is perhaps one that's really resonated with me and clearly resonates with you as well.
Thank you so much, Steve. That was wonderful. And Monica, what a great question that was. And the Guayaquil Space Society really wants to encourage, that level of participation, where those aspirations, those dreams of our members can definitely be achieved in reaching space. And I think this presents a great opportunity. I think opportunity it's a better word than maybe challenge, but about what can we do, about taking that energy, that passion from the students here, and inspire them about sending something to space. We did a project with one of the schools here about sending a project with seeds. Now maybe we can focus on the STEAM part and add the art part about reaching space. And I think that could be something great, where your leadership, Steve and Monica, can be really helpful in guiding us to reach that. And I would love to invite you to think about how can we make that happen, and have that example of art reaching space, Ecuadorian art, Latin American art, world art, So thank you so much. And let's see, I would like to now welcome Consuelo Hidalgo from Centro Ecuatoriano Norteamericano. Consuelo, would you like to say some closing words, please?
Yes, this has been wonderful. I want to thank everyone. Well, my background is in arts management in Washington, so I've been doing a lot of audience development programs. And one of my favorite programs when I worked at the Guayaquil Symphony Orchestra, and after I did my my internship at the Philharmonia Baroque Orchestra in San Francisco, was to play the planets to kids and ask them to close their eyes and see what they imagine. And one kid once said that when he listened to the part of Mars, he felt like he was burning. And I told him, well, that planet is the closest one to the sun. And that was very, very inspiring, because this merge between the arts and science, and the way kids perceive that, not only using, it's a multi-sensual educational experience, because you listen, you close your eyes, you feel, you can imagine. So for me, it's been really inspiring to hear all of you, because that's my area where I've been working a lot of times. So I really thank you, and I thank Robert as well, because he's always been in touch with the CEN, with the Binational Center, and to not only bring this high quality webinars, but to do them in English. And for us, it's very important as a part of our mission to unite the cultures of Ecuador and the United States. So thank you so much. This has been very, very important and special for me personally, and I hope all the audiences that will see this will also find it inspiring and send all their questions so they can be answered. So thank you, and big hug to all of you around the world and here in Ecuador.
Thank you so much, Consuelo Hidalgo, with the CEN, the Centro Ecuatoriano Norteamericano. And in fact, yes, there has always been a link, a very lovable link, workable link, industrial link from Guayaquil and the United States. In fact, based on the Treaty of Peace, Friendship, Navigation, and Commerce signed in 1824, William Wheelwright was the first consul ever, the first consul general in Guayaquil, and it was created even before the country of Ecuador was created. It's been a wonderful night, and we thank Steve Brody and we thank Monica Maruri, and you have been wonderful. I'm sure there are a lot of questions that were left there to be answered, but it's been a golden night, just like the golden record from the Voyager golden record, which sent a hello from the Earth into space. Hotel Oro Verde is a major hotel here in Guayaquil. Steve, you're more than welcome to come and visit. And of course, Monica also, because Monica happens to be in Quito. But they've been wonderful since we started. I'd like to thank Fernando Arrigorriaga, Ingrid Rodriguez, and Amalia Freire from Hotel Oro Verde. And from the CEN, Kurt Thuret, our technical person. Thank you so very much. Kathy Carrillo, and of course, our own Consuelo Hidalgo. Thank you so much, and we'll see you not in space yet, but we'll see you
on Mars
somewhere.
The Perseverance rover on Mars with the little, right there is, where is it? The little Infinity.
Oh yes, the helicopter.
The little Infinity helicopter that hopefully will take flight sometime in the next few weeks and send back pictures, and who knows what artistry that will inspire when we start to take pictures from hovering above the Martian surface. It's been my pleasure. Thank you. And buenas noches to everyone from Arlington,
Thank you,
Virginia.
Steve. Buenas noches, Boker Tov. I'm learning a little Hebrew, so make sure I know how to say Bereshit, which is the Genesis. And so hopefully in your interfaith, by that time, I'll know a little bit more of biblical Hebrew to share.
Well, you may
Thank
know
you
more
so
than
much,
I.
Steve. Thank you, Monica, and thank you to our audience. Thank you, Robert Ayon, for putting this together. Good night.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Good night, all.